think we might start. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this morning's annual general meeting of Cooper Energy Limited. My name is John Condy. I'm the chairman of Cooper Energy, and I extend a warm welcome to you all, and thank you for joining us. And some of you have travelled, and I particularly thank you for joining us. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the sites and regions where we operate. We pay our respects to elders past and present. There are several housekeeping matters to mention. In the event of an emergency requiring us to evacuate this room, you should exit from the door you came in and via the stairs located either side of the elevators. The venue staff will escort you to an emergency meeting site. Please turn off your mobile phones. I have turned mine off. Or switch them to silent mode. Shareholder, proxy holder and corporate representatives attending today's meeting will have the opportunity to ask questions and vote on the formal items of business. Today's meeting is being recorded and will be available on the company's website within the next 24 hours. Let me introduce you to the company's directors, most of whom are present at this meeting. From your left, Jane Norman, Managing Director and CEO, Tim Bednall, Non-Executive Director, Giselle Collins, Non-Executive Director, Jeffrey Schneider, Non-Executive Director, and Vicky Binns, Non-Executive Director. We're very sorry that Betsy Donaghy, our other non-executive director, was confirmed with COVID yesterday, preventing her from attending today, and she asks that you accept her apologies. In addition, we are joined by Daniel Young, our CFO, down the front, some other senior executives down the front, and Darren Hall on the front right, an assurance partner representing the company's auditor, EY. The proceedings this morning will be as follows. I will address the meeting, and that will be followed by a presentation and address from the Managing Director. After the Managing Director's presentation, there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions, and then the formal part of the annual general meeting will commence after the questions. As foreshadowed at last year's AGM, 2023 was a year of leadership transition for Cooper Energy. In March, we welcomed Jane Norman as our new Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer. Jane brings a wealth of gas industry experience to the company, and in the 8 months since commencing, has energised our business with a focus on operational excellence. David Maxwell retired after approximately 12 years as Managing Director, and we acknowledge and thank him for his contribution to the company. He was the architect of the company's strategic focus on the Southeast Australian gas market, a strategic focus which remains most relevant today. Of course, the most disappointing aspect of the past 12 months has been the share price. It remains materially below what most people would regard as fair value, failing to reflect the considerable strategic potential of the company's operations, its reserves and its resources. We feel the frustration of shareholders, and we appreciate the increased interest and the support of all our shareholders. Thank you. The long-planned decommissioning of the BMG assets is only weeks from starting. Planning for this, in consultation with the relevant regulator and other authorities and interested parties, has been a long and detailed process. It is, of course, a significant use of funds, all of which is more than covered in our existing cash balances and funding arrangements. We know that shareholders will be pleased when this project is completed. The other critical factor for shareholders is the performance of the Orbost gas processing plant for our sole gas. We finally became the operator of this plant on the 22nd of May this year, already 5 months ago. We were delighted to welcome our new Chief Operating Officer, Chad Wilson, who is here this morning, to our senior management group in late October. And Chad will intensify the focus on all operational matters, especially the performance of our gas processing plants at Orbost and Athena. In her address, Jane will have more to say on both these issues, the BMG decommissioning and gas plant performance. Chad's joining us was an important part of organisational changes that Jane has made. The new structure is focused on further lifting the capabilities of the executive team, giving clear accountabilities, and reflects our commitment to operational excellence. Concurrently, the Managing Director is driving cost reductions with an all-encompassing review of costs in the business. With the departure of 2 long-standing board members, a board refreshment process is also underway. I acknowledge the services of board members Hector Gordon, who welcome this morning to the meeting, and Vicky Binns. Hector was chair of our Risk and Sustainability Committee, and Vicky is chair of our Audit Committee. Hector retired in June at the conclusion of the financial year, having joined the company as an executive director in 2012, following Cooper Energy's takeover of Summerton Energy, where Hector was the managing director. Vicky has decided not to stand for re-election at this AGM, following 4 years of distinguished service on the board. Vicky's decision is in response to changes to her current portfolio of non-executive commitments and her other work commitments. I thank them both for their dedication and service to the company. The size of the board has been reduced from 7 to 5 non-executive directors, and it is our intention to keep the board at this smaller size. With the new Managing Director and CEO now in place, along with the refreshed executive leadership team, it's an appropriate time for us to consider board renewal. We have commissioned a non-executive director search process, and we are seeking candidates with specific upstream gas industry experience, as well as leadership and governance qualities, as part of an orderly transition in this refreshment process. None of this detracts from the fundamental issue for shareholders, including that the fiscal year 23's results were disappointing, to say the least. In this regard, the company chose not to approve payment of the company's scorecard component of the short-term incentive plan. That said, and on a positive note, I acknowledge with pleasure that our health, safety and environment results were strong and better than the industry benchmark. Before I ask the Managing Director to address us, I acknowledge and thank all those who have helped throughout the year. In particular, I thank you, our shareholders, for your continuing support, while assuring you that we feel your frustration and disappointment. We look forward to a reflection in the share price of the company's true value. Our long-term lenders continue their commitment to Cooper Energy, and I thank them for this. Our gas customers have been very supportive and continue to work with us to achieve mutually positive outcomes. We appreciate the support we receive from our local communities in the Otway and Gippsland Basin regions, communities which we actively support. I record my thanks to my board colleagues for their wise and considered counsel and support always. And I thank Nicole Ortigosa, who was appointed Company Secretary and General Counsel in July this year. She has settled well into the role, and I thank her for her support. It is also appropriate to record our appreciation to our former Company Secretary and General Counsel, Amelia Jale. Amelia's energy and dedication were hallmarks of her service, and she provided invaluable assistance. Finally, I record my appreciation to our Managing Director, Jane Norman, and her team for their leadership. The board is delighted to be working with Jane, and her team is committed to improving performance for Cooper Energy's shareholders. I now invite the Managing Director to address us.
Thank you, Chairman. It is my pleasure to address our shareholders today. Our disclaimer is set out on this slide. Amongst other matters set out here, I would draw your attention to the language used regarding forward-looking statements. Our priorities for FY24 comprise of the following 4 key areas. First, Orbis Improvement Project to increase plant throughput. Secondly, delivery of BMG decommissioning within the mid-case cost estimate. Thirdly, reducing costs across our business, both G&A and production expenses. Fourth and last, unlocking our growth opportunities to bring much-needed gas supply to the East Coast domestic market. I'll talk about all of these points in turn, but first, Orbis. Since taking operatorship at the Orbis gas processing plant in May 2023, our dedicated engineering team have progressed a comprehensive improvement project. This has included working with the technology provider Pekel on root cause analysis of the foaming and resultant fouling, reducing the downtime associated with cleaning the absorbers by over 40%, assessing the potential to install a third absorber so that production can average 60 terajoules a day or above when one absorber is being cleaned offline. The requirement for a third absorber is dependent on the outcome of the Orbis Improvement Project, but we have progressed the assessment so as to be in a position to proceed without delay in the course of Q1 calendar year 2024, should the project be warranted. We have made significant improvements in reducing downtime associated with cleaning the absorbers, reducing the offline time from around 48 hours down to 30 hours or less on a consistent basis. All other things being equal, this would improve annual production throughput by roughly 3 terajoules a day. We are also continuing to trial in situ cleaning in an effort to further reduce cleaning times and minimize the safety risks associated with the full absorber vessel clean. We've trialed a number of other things, including adjusting the density of the Nutrimix, changing the spray nozzle configuration, and using alternative packing materials and configuration. Although we have not yet achieved the desired outcome, we have learned a lot about the plant performance and the stability, which will support the ongoing delivery of our improvement initiatives. We continue to work with global experts, including Pekel, the technology license holder, on solutions to improve plant performance. Our overriding objective remains focused on increasing average processing rates closer to the nameplate capacity of 68 terajoules a day. Secondly, on BMG, a mid-case cost estimate for BMG decommissioning of 193 to 198 million continues to be a reasonable estimate, despite the weather and program delays experienced by the Q7000 vessel in New Zealand, resulting in a delayed start to our program. The Q7000 is expected to depart New Zealand for Geelong in mid-November, and work for Cooper Energy will commence no earlier than late November. We have contingencies as part of the mid-case cost estimate. However, the weather and program delays experienced by the Q7000 vessel in New Zealand already have made the mid-case cost estimate more sensitive to any future delays. The mid-ocean conditions in the Gippsland are different to those in New Zealand and are not expected to be experienced during the BMG decommissioning program. While our absolute focus will be on executing the program safely and within the minimum time possible, there remain certain risks, including variables outside of Cooper Energy's control. These risks include further delays to the receipt of the Q7000 vessel, greater than expected decommissioning work, or other factors, including foreign exchange fluctuations, that could increase the total cost above the mid-case estimate. Cooper Energy is monitoring these risks daily and will update the market as material information comes to hand. Thirdly, in the last several months, we have also kicked off a cost reduction program. We are actively investigating opportunities to reduce both our production expenses and our general and administrative costs. Progress to date has included headcount reductions, labour cost reductions, and savings in corporate overhead and travel and entertainment expenses. These three elements are expected to deliver significant savings. Further cost out initiatives will focus on reduction in operating contract services, including waste management costs at Orbost, reducing office space, including consolidating the Adelaide office, and rationalising the Perth office space after the completion of the BMG project. We have more than 70 actions identified in the cost out program, and a further update will be provided as part of the half-year reporting in February. Finally, as announced in July this year, Cooper Energy is exempt from the Australian Federal Government's gas code price cap of $12 a gigajoule. As a domestic producer of less than 100 petajoules per annum, this opens the door for our Otway growth opportunities. To progress Otway growth, we have participated in a rig club, which will bring a rig to the area in late 2025, early 2026. We have contracted one firm well slot with a number of additional options, enabling us to develop new gas resources through the Athena gas plant. Developing local gas through existing infrastructure is the fastest, lowest cost, and lowest emission way to bring more gas supply to the domestic market. As this chart from AEMO shows, gas supply in the southeastern market is falling much faster than gas demand, creating a significant opportunity for Cooper Energy's undeveloped resources in the Otway and Gippsland basins. Outside of the Gippsland Basin JV, we are the second largest reserves holder in the region, and we are the only player exclusively focused on this structurally short market. With LNG exports diverted from Queensland and LNG imports likely to be the only near-term solution to meeting demand, we see gas prices continuing to increase to LNG import parity. Gas is used for many important purposes in the Australian economy, even as we electrify. If we look at all energy consumed today in Australia, only around 20% of that energy is consumed as electricity. The other 80% is consumed as fuels such as gas. While we expect electrification to increase in Australia, not everything can be electrified, and gas will continue to be used as a feedstock and for high temperature process heat for manufacturing, as there are currently no commercial alternatives. Today, if we look at domestic gas demand in the southeastern Australian market, 36% of gas is consumed by industrial customers for industrial heat or feedstock. 45% of gas is consumed by residential customers for heating, hot water, and cooking. And 19% is consumed for power generation to provide long-duration firming power, an increasingly critical role. As we continue to integrate more intermittent renewables into the electricity mix, the demand for firming power generation provided by gas will increase. In South Australia today, where renewables make up around 70% of electricity mix, gas-fired power gen contributes 20 to 25% of South Australia's power supply over an average year. South Australia's power mix provides a window into the future mix of the whole national electricity market, as more intermittent renewables are integrated, and this suggests more reliable, long-duration gas-fired power gen is required. We believe gas is a future fuel. We expect it to play an important role in Australia's energy transition and meeting the demand for reliable, affordable, lower-emission energy. We are very pleased to announce earlier this week that we extended our gas sales agreement with Energy Australia to supply 5 petajoules of gas per annum. This demonstrates the continued domestic gas demand from Australia's east coast. 5 petajoules per annum of domestic gas can supply more than 100,000 Victorian homes with all of their gas needs. Our focus on Orbost improvements is driven by the significant upside potential. At a $10 gigajoule spot price and a 10 terajoule a day increase in processing rates, the Gippsland Basin hub can generate an additional $35 million in EBITDAX per annum. As discussed earlier, in parallel with resolving our immediate production issues, we are focused on unlocking the growth in the Otway. We have completed front-end engineering design on the Otway Phase 3 development project, which could increase the production at the Athena gas plant up to 90 terajoules a day for a 3-well development, or more than 30 petajoules of gas per annum on a gross basis. We are also actively pursuing faster cycle time onshore developments using rigs already based in Australia. Beyond this, we are open up to third-party gas processing opportunities to bring throughput up to the capacity of 150 terajoules at the Athena plant. I'd like to close my address with the reminder that Cooper Energy has been carbon neutral certified by Climate Active since the financial year 2020. This year, as operator of both the Athena gas plant and the Orbost gas processing plant, we have also renewed our attention to physical emission reductions across both facilities. We remain committed to playing our role in Australia's energy future and delivering low-emission natural gas to Australians. I'll now hand back to the Chairman for the formal part of the meeting.
Thank you, Jane. I now invite questions from shareholders. We have received one shareholder question via Computershare, and I thank Mr. and Mrs. Maselli for their question regarding the current share price. Having received the question in advance, I addressed it in paragraphs 3 to 5 of my address, as well as slide 6 of Jane's address. But we thank Mr. and Mrs. Maselli for their question. Are there questions on matters, on any matters, from the room that you would like to discuss? I'd just like you to raise your shareholder voting card and perhaps say your name and where you're from, and please ask any questions you would like to ask. Well, there'll be further opportunity for questions, but so we'll keep going. We'll move to the formal part of the meeting, and I'm informed we have a quorum present, and therefore the meeting is constituted properly, and I declare the annual general meeting of Cooper Energy Limited open. The proxies received for today's meeting are held by Computershare. We have received proxies representing approximately 1,627.8 million shares, or approximately 61.86% of the company's issued shares. Where a proxy has been given to the chairman of the meeting without voting instruction, in all cases I intend to vote those in favour of resolutions 1 to 3 inclusive. The notice of annual general meeting dated 9th of October 2023, of which I have a copy here, has been circulated to all Cooper Energy shareholders, and I take that notice of meeting as read. The minutes of the general meeting of the company held on the 10th of November 2022 have been signed, and a copy is available for inspection. Mr. Kubniewski, down the front from our lawyers, has the minutes. I will now deal with the formal items of business as set out in the notice of meeting. I confirm that shareholders attending today's meeting and wishing to ask a question, provided it relates to the relevant agenda item under discussion, will be given the opportunity to do so as we consider that resolution. All resolutions will be put to a poll at the end of the formal business. To ask a question, as I indicated earlier, please hold your blue voting card, and if you would be agreeable, please state your name and ask your question. The first order of business is to receive and consider the financial statements and related reports by directors and auditors. I confirm that all shareholders who have requested a printed copy have been mailed a copy of the company's 2023 annual report. The annual report has also been available and still is on the company's website and contains the annual financial report together with the reports of the directors and the auditor for the financial year ended 30 June 2023. There is no resolution required for this, but if shareholders have any questions or comments regarding the financial statements and reports, including any questions as to the conduct of the audit and the preparation and content of the auditor's report, I invite you to ask those questions now. There are 3 formal resolutions to be considered by the meeting today. As I indicated during my welcome, votes will only be taken from shareholders, proxy holders or corporate representatives entitled to vote and who have attended in person today. Resolution 1 is the adoption of the remuneration report. Consistent with Section 250R of the Corporations Act, the company submits to shareholders for consideration and adoption by way of a non-binding vote its remuneration report for the year ended 30 June 2023. The vote on Resolution 1 is advisory and will not bind the directors or the company. However, the board will take the outcome of the vote into consideration when reviewing remuneration practices and policies. I now move that the remuneration report set out in the directors' report for the financial year ended 30 June 2023 be adopted. The proxy votes received for this resolution are now displayed on your screen. Please note that as set out in the notice of meeting, key management personnel and their closely related parties are excluded from voting on this resolution. Please see the notice of meeting for more detail on how this voting prohibition is to be applied. The resolution is open for discussion. Would anybody like to ask a question on the remuneration report? Well, there being no questions, this resolution will be put to a poll, and as indicated, all polls will be conducted by Computershare at the end of the meeting. The final poll results for all resolutions will be released to the ASX and posted on the company's website when they are available this afternoon. Resolution 2 is the re-election of Mr. Timothy Bednall as a director. Clause 5 of the company's constitution provides that at each annual general meeting of the company, 1/3, or the number nearest to but not exceeding 1/3, of the directors and any director who has held office for 3 years or more must retire from office. As set out in the notice of meeting, Ms. Victoria Binns will be retiring from the board at the AGM in accordance with Clause 5 of the company's constitution. Ms. Binns has decided not to offer herself for re-election and will cease to be a director at the conclusion of this meeting. Vicky has served on the board for nearly 4 years, and we record our sincere appreciation to her for her diligent and enthusiastic service, especially for all her work as chair of the Audit Committee, which has not been without its challenges. I understand her decision is driven principally from the increasing time commitments of her evolving board portfolio, and she has been extremely supportive and, like all of us, has great confidence in our new CEO and Managing Director, Jane Norman. And again, I just record sincere gratitude to Vicky for her time on the board. Mr. Bednall is also retiring in accordance with Clause 5 of the company's constitution, and being eligible has offered himself for re-election. Details of Mr. Bednall's background and experience are contained in the annual report. The board is fortunate to have as a member someone of Mr. Bednall's renowned professional experience, and we are grateful that he commits so willingly to the demands of the board as we have navigated many challenges in recent times. Thank you, Tim. I have pleasure in moving that Mr. Bednall, a director of the company who retires by rotation in accordance with Clause 5.1 and who offers himself for re-election, be re-elected as a director of the company. The proxies received for this resolution are shown on your screen. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this resolution? As you can see, the proxies received for this resolution are fairly convincing. Congratulations, Tim. The resolution will be put to a poll and Computershare will conduct that at the end of the meeting. Resolution 3 is the issue of rights to the Managing Director and CEO. As a general policy, the board considers that senior executives should be remunerated in a manner that encourages them to become and remain shareholders, as this is the best mechanism to align their interests with those of the company's shareholders. It is the company's policy that the performance-based pay, that is, the pay that is at risk, of senior executives forms a significant portion of their total remuneration. Granting incentives under a long-term incentive plan seeks to encourage and reward contributions to the company's long-term sustainable performance. Listing Rule 10.14 provides that a company must not issue or agree to issue securities to a director under an employee incentive scheme without the prior approval of holders of ordinary securities. Under Section 200B of the Corporations Act, a company may only give a person a benefit in connection with their ceasing to hold a managerial or executive office in the company, such as that held by Ms. Norman, or a related body corporate if it is approved by shareholders under Section 200E or an exemption applies. Under Resolution 3, shareholder approval is sought for the issue of performance rights as incentives to Ms. Norman. Subject to shareholder approval, the incentives will be issued in accordance with the invitation made by the board pursuant to the terms of the company's equity incentive plan, which was approved by shareholders at last year's AGM. I now move that for the purpose of Listing Rule 10.14, Sections 200B and 200E of the Corporations Act, and for all other purposes, the issue to Ms. Jane Norman of performance rights pursuant to the company's equity incentive plan, as described in the explanatory notes accompanying the notice of meeting, be approved. The proxy votes for this resolution are now displayed on your screen. There is a voting exclusion on this. The company will disregard any votes cast on this resolution by Ms. Norman, her nominees, and any of their associates, and by the company's key management personnel as named in the remuneration report, or by any closely related party of a member of the key management personnel acting as a proxy. Please see the notice of meeting for more detail on how that voting exclusion is applied. The resolution is open for discussion, and I invite questions. There being no questions, this resolution will be put to a poll, which Computershare will conduct at the end of the meeting. And as I said earlier, the final poll results for all resolutions will be released to the ASX and posted on the company's website when they are available this afternoon. Just about the poll, Computershare Investor Services has been appointed to conduct the poll. We will now conduct the poll on motions 1 to 3. First, if there is any person present who believes they are entitled to vote but has not registered to vote, would you please raise your hand for assistance? The persons entitled to vote on this poll are all shareholders, representatives and attorneys of shareholders, and proxy holders who hold blue admission cards. On the reverse side of your blue admission card is your voting paper and instructions. I will now go through the procedures for filling in the voting papers. The summary of proxy votes is attached to your blue form, and it contains details for the voting instructions for the business items on the documents in your favour. By completing the voting paper when instructed to vote in a particular manner, you are deemed to have voted in accordance with those instructions. In respect of any open votes you as a proxy holder may be entitled to cast, you need to mark the box beside the motion to indicate how you wish to cast your open votes. I don't know if there are any questions on any of that, but very happy to have them now. Shareholders finally need to mark the box beside the motion to indicate how you wish to cast the votes, and please ensure that you print your name and sign the voting paper. When you've finished doing that, you can lodge your voting paper in the ballot box. And if anybody would like to have any assistance on what I've just said, please raise your hand. Here is the ballot box. Any other blue forms? I think someone might be completing one down the front here. Is there anybody who has a form that hasn't been completed that would like more time? All right, I think that's all done, and I declare the poll closed. The result of the poll will be declared by announcing the details when they are available. As I've said at least twice, that'll be advised to the ASX this afternoon. We now have completed the matters contained in the Notice of Annual General Meeting, and I thank you all for your attendance, and I declare the meeting closed. And I hope that, again, in thanking you for coming, and some of you have made a particular effort to get here from distant points, I do hope that you'll stay and have a cup of tea and talk with us all now. Thank you very much.